I want to show you how I created this video with the Sony FX6, and I want to show you some BTS footage and the whole color grading process.
Everything took place in that empty warehouse. The video starts with these tracking shots, for which I used the DJI RS4 Pro gimbal, another very low tracking shot, and these are exactly the scenes that you see in the final video later. The rest of the scenes were all shot handheld with the FX6, which worked out pretty nice. The FX6 has no image stabilization, so some people only use it with an easy rig or a gimbal maybe. But I really wanted some kind of action movement and I did not want to stabilize it. Yeah, here I shot some green screen scenes as well, just for the case if I would need it, but I didn't, I went another route. By the way, this crazy good driver is Jonas Folger, a German KTM test driver for MotoGP, and a super nice guy. Now I want to show you how I graded this. That's the naked image shot in S-Log3. The first thing I do is a Colorspace transform and convert everything into Davinci Wide Gamut. This is a much wider workspace than Rec. 709, where it's much easier to work with highlights or colors in general, and this is what makes Resolve so powerful. I have a YouTube tutorial that explains that in detail and why you should really use that. I put it below in the description. Of course, we need a second Colorspace transform that's located after all of our manipulations and transforms the whole signal back to Rec. 709. Now we get to the fun part. In the beginning I made a simple exposure correction. The image was a bit too dark, so I brightened it up with the offset wheel. In the next node I used the offset wheel as well to make the image a bit cooler. I just dragged it a bit into the blue and teal area. You can clearly see the difference when I activate and deactivate the node. Now comes the time for my favorite tool, which is Dehancer. Dehancer is a paid film emulation plugin that's worth every penny. I literally use it on every single project I make right now. And it removes the digital look from your camera footage. Here's without Dehancer, way too saturated colors, way too sharp. And here is with Dehancer. It immediately feels more filmic. The cool thing is that you really can dial in your film look as you want it to be. You can choose between dozens of film stocks and combine it with print film emulations, which is something completely different than the simple film LUTs you get in Resolve. I made a whole video about Dehancer, which is linked below, and if you think of buying it, you can use the discount code FILMLOOK10 to save 10% on every Dehancer product. I use Dehancer Pro, which contains all the features like film grain, halation and so on, which is really useful. Now let's move on with our grading. I want to color the biker different than the background. So what I did is I isolated the biker with a magic mask. Let's put this away and open the magic mask controls. When you toggle this switch here, you see what the magic mask is selecting, and I tracked it so that it moves with the biker. Now I feed this mask into the next color node, where I grade the biker and made him a bit brighter. Then I created an outside node, where I darkened everything but the biker a bit and turned it a bit more into the blue area. When we open the vector scope, you see how it shifts into the blues. By pressing Shift H, you see that our outside mask contains everything but the biker. As you can see, I made some parallel nodes where I create some masks and fine-tune some colors. In the first one, I just made a main mask that affects the biker. The visual focus should really be on the biker, and I want to darken the rest even more. I even turned this a bit more into the blues to exaggerate the orange biker in contrast to the blue background. In the next node, I just fixed the skin color on the neck a bit. Nothing fancy about that, I just masked it out to not affect anything from the suit. And I manually tracked this mask very roughly. I just moved it frame by frame to where it has to be. In the next node I darkened the ceiling a bit because I found it a bit too bright. And then I wanted to do something against these orange panels on the wall. I just isolated this orange color and I simply wanted to desaturate it, like this. But as you can see, the helmet contains this orange color as well. And I wanted to keep this helmet very saturated. So I created a circular mask around his helmet and inverted it to select everything orange but this area. Then I tracked it and I'm happy with the result. Same thing applies to the screens. I just found them a bit too dark and wanted to brighten them up. And since they are moving, I had to use a magic mask and track it again to make that somewhat convincing. In this next node, I create an overlay effect. This just makes the colors a bit more dense. And you create this by simply adding an empty node, setting the composite mode to overlay, and changing the key input, depending how much you want the effect to blend in. And the last effect is just a subtle glow effect that I want to put on the lights. Again, I created a mask around the lights to not affect the windows too much and tracked it. And here is the final video.